and this is a scary thing to say, right? But I don't know if we're fully allowed to be all the way healed. And then,
So
you
true.
know, on the opposite of that, I don't know if we're allowed to be fully wounded.
Yeah.
And I think that most times burnout can come from this concept of I either can't be wounded, right? Or
Yep.
I can't be
Can't be
healed.
healed.
Right. So I've got this notion that I have to have one or the other. And yet at the same time, the reality is, for those of us who've been in ministry, is you're usually serving while you're bleeding.
Yes. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Burned Out Preacher podcast. I am your host, Monique Addison-Stinson. I'm a burnout prevention coach. So excited. I know I say this every time, but I really am excited to have today's guest on. And I'm going to let him introduce himself. He's just a sweetheart. This is our first time actually meeting. I follow him on Facebook, and he has the sweetest spirit. And I'm just going to let him introduce himself before we get started.
Monique, thank you so very much. This is just a pleasure for me. I share your excitement. Thank you for the invitation. And for all of those who follow you, thank you for the attention and just taking the time out. My name is Emilio Alvarez. I'll start with my current position. I am currently the Associate Provost at Asbury Theological Seminary. My responsibilities here is I oversee the Doctor of Ministry program, the Center for Church Multiplication, and all of the non-credit bearing certificates. I've been here in this role now for about 7 months in the beautiful area of Wilmore and Lexington, Kentucky. As you know, there's a revival that they're finishing up now here in Asbury. Well, I am also the presiding bishop of the Union of Charismatic Orthodox Churches. It is a union, a federation of churches around the country and internationally of charismatic and Pentecostal churches that have recovered the great tradition. I pastored the cathedral at the Gathering Place in Rochester, New York, who is now going on 8 years of age, a predominantly African American church with the recovery of the great tradition, liturgy, sacraments. All in all, I've been pastoring about 24 years now. So I know I look young and I'm excited about it. I've been pastoring about 24 years. I have three beautiful children, one beautiful granddaughter. And I have a bachelor's in Christian education, a master's in religious education from New York Theological Seminary, and a PhD from Fordham University. And I'm doing another PhD at the University of Aberdeen under the very Reverend John Bear. I think that covers it.
See, this is why I let my guests introduce themselves. I would have botched all of that up. So thank
Oh,
you.
bless you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, you look like you're probably in, I would say, like early 30s at the
The
most.
Lord bless you. The Lord bless you.
Like
Yeah.
literally at the most early 30s.
Thank,
So that is awesome.
thank you. I'll let my trainer know that you said so. He's the one that is really encouraging me. So, oh, and my latest book. I'm so
Oh
sorry,
yeah,
Monique.
please do.
Totally forgot. So I wrote a book, Pentecostal Orthodoxy, that came out in September with InterVarsity Press, and my latest book on Pentecost comes out now in April with Esau Macaulay, Tish
Oh wow.
Harrison, and a couple of others in a volume. My apologies, I forgot that.
No problem, no problem. So I will make sure I put all of that in the description so everyone can have a link to everything. So thank
Thank you so
you.
very much.
No problem. So, like I mentioned before I hit record, this is all about
Mm.
talking about ministry burnout. And what does ministry burnout mean to you?
It's a great question. You know, when you sent it this, when you sent the questions over, I was actually teaching Salvation Army pastors and leaders yesterday, and we were talking about this precise thing. So I see ministry burnout as a person who is a wounded healer
Mm,
and has not yet been able to grasp or to understand that tension.
yeah.
Henry Nouwen's, the Wounded Healer book has been one of my favorites for a very long time. And that whole story that he gives at the end of the book, page 77, 79, and how we are in ministry, wounded healers. I see pastors who are burned out as men and women who do not recognize, don't know, or cannot hold intention the fact that you're never allowed to be fully healed and you're never allowed to be fully wounded.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
Right. Oh, that is
yeah,
so good. I'm glad you mentioned that book because I totally forgot about that. And that is such a great book.
yeah.
Such a great book. Oh,
It is. It really is.
and
Yeah.
you said that you're never allowed to totally heal.
Mm.
I love that so much because that is so accurate.
Right.
If you think about a wound, it needs to totally heal
Right.
first,
Right.
and in that healing, there's our body usually adds this protective layer so
Right.
that it can be cocooned or of sort,
Mm-hmm.
so that it can heal. And our ministry leaders aren't given um,
Yeah.
that opportunity to fully heal before they have to go and help someone else. So thank you.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
Man.
that whole narrative of that wounded healer where the rabbi asked the prophet Elijah, "Where's the Messiah?" And the rabbi hears from the prophet Elijah, he's among the wounded. He's there with the poor and the wounded. And the rabbi says, "Well, how am I going to find him?" And the prophet says, "He's the only one who dresses a wound, one wound at a time, lest he say, because if he says, hey, lest someone needs me, I have to be ready to help them." And I don't know, Monique, and this is a scary thing to say, right? But I don't know if we're fully allowed to be all the way healed.
Oh,
And then,
so
you
true.
know, on the opposite of that, I don't know if we're allowed to be fully wounded.
Yeah.
And I think that most times burnout can come from this concept of I either can't be wounded, right, or
Yep.
I can't be
Can't be
healed,
healed.
right, so I've got this notion that I have to have one or the other. And yet at the same time, the reality is, for those of us who've been in ministry, is you're usually serving while you're bleeding.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and, and that, I think, is problematic if you don't understand the purpose of it. And that's where burnout comes out.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
true. When you were saying that, so I deal with a health condition called the clinical term is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and the, the short term is POTS is what it's called, and it's a form of dysautonomia. And dysautonomia is if you don't know, for those who don't know, is the part of your it's when your autonomic nervous system, in your body goes haywire.
Okay.
So the autonomic nervous system, if those who don't know what this is the system in your body that automatically does things. So blinking, when you stand up, your brain and legs talk to one another automatically.
Right.
You can
Right.
stand up, you're not passing out, things of that nature, sweating, these mechanisms in our bodies that automatically happen.
Right.
And so when you deal with dysautonomia, that system is not functioning properly. And so I deal with that, and it's called an invisible illness.
Mm,
And so as you were talking, that made me think of invisible illnesses that pastors probably have, that I
sure.
deal with, because I've always said to my family, I'm like, I'm not allowed to be sick because
Mm,
people can't see that I'm not
right.
feeling well. I look fine.
Right.
but I'm sick.
Mm.
There's some days where I really can't function, but people look at me, "What's wrong with you?" Well, I
Mm.
told you
Yeah,
that I
yeah.
have this condition and I don't
Right,
feel well today.
right.
But you're just not allowed to be sick. You don't get, phone calls or people checking on you
Mhm.
because you look fine.
Right,
Right? And
right.
so that's what came to mind when you said that pastors are
Mm.
dealing with that, and it is such a lonely place.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. And pastors are dealing with, I mean, I get criticized by some, not all, because I came out and I think I was preaching for the Potter's House in Fort Worth, Texas. I think it is Pastor Patrick Winfield.
Mhm.
And in my sermon, I said, I was diagnosed bipolar. And that's the truth. I was
Yeah.
diagnosed bipolar. And so there was some who criticized me because I was oh, how can you have the Holy Ghost and be bipolar? And I mean, just you know, just I mean, craziness. What I'm bipolar. Wow, this person is probably ADHD. I mean, it's just
Right,
a
right,
number of things that we deal with that really contribute to our burnout
right.
and contribute to our emotional and mental breakdown,
Yeah.
even our spiritual breakdown.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we have to deal with these issues.
right.
That's the reality of life. Yeah.
And you have to deal with it while helping other people
While
deal with their
helping other
issues.
people, woman of God, you ain't lying. I mean, that's the, and you've got to be wounded
Right.
and still help heal others. Yeah, yeah,
Crazy. It sounds crazy when you say it, right?
yeah, yeah. Right. Like take care of yourself. It's like, well, to this we've been called.
Right, right.
And going back to that story, it is Jesus himself who is taking and dressing a bandage at a time instead of all of them,
Right.
because he says, "Lest there's someone who needs my help." And so there's something Christ-like about it. There is, well, of course, it is Christ-like.
Right.
Yet, without knowing the tensions, without knowing that this is an actual thing, to use some type of ebonic, I think that's where burnout hits us. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So true.
yeah,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whew. So what are the signs of burnout? So have you've dealt with ministry burnout.
Oh yeah,
What did it look like for you? When did it click that, "Okay, I'm burnout," or did it? Maybe it didn't.
yeah. Well, mine is a particular case, and so my last burnout was horrible,
Mhm.
but mine is a particular case because of my bipolarism. I have moments, actually years, where I'm up here. I'm
Right.
I'm you know I'm just performing at a very very high level.
Yeah.
So within a span of 3 years, probably, I'm so manic I can accomplish,
A lot.
I mean,
Yeah.
incredible things.
Yeah.
And then by year 4, like, no one can stand to be around me,
Right.
because I hit rock bottom if I'm not careful. But burnout usually comes for me when there are moments of two things. When there are either moments of much work that I don't know to say no to,
Mm. That's a big
um, or moments of betrayal that I can't handle.
Those are 2 major ones.
Yeah, and I think that what
Wow.
happens to pastors is that we sometimes, many times, often, I'm going to say that, I'm
Yeah.
getting closer and closer, overlook the realities of betrayal
Yeah.
and how they lead to our burnout. And so you can hang on, right? You can hang on. You can do the 12, 13-hour days, the coming home, the studying, the preaching, the teaching, the going to the ministries, prison, hospital. You can do all of those things if you know you're making a difference. At the end of the night, you can go to sleep knowing that you've made a difference.
Yep.
But when the very same people
Come on
who
now.
you have poured into, worked so hard to help, then betray you, that's
Yeah.
another level that
Ooh,
leads you to your burnout. And so my last burnout, I actually had a psychosomatic episode. My brain convinced my body to shut down. Literally. I mean, I had to be carted away by ambulance, was at the hospital, had stroke-like and heart attack-like symptoms. Did not have a stroke, did not have a heart attack. My blood work came back fine. Everything came back fine. The next day when I woke up, the doctor explained to me that there was nothing wrong with me physically. They sent me to
wow.
therapists and psychiatrists, and lo and behold, I had a psychosomatic episode. My brain convinced I was so burned out with everything going on. And then on top of that, betrayal. It's like, boom. And, my body and my brain couldn't take it. And it said, if you're not going to shut down,
I will shut you down
I will shut you down. And
because
that's
I need to heal.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Wow.
that's exactly what happened. So I've had a couple burnouts, not like this last one, um, but a couple burnouts. And you usually get irritable. You want to quit,
Yep.
right? That's that Elijah situation. You want to quit.
Exactly. Yeah.
And when you get to that point, and I know that's one of your questions, in terms of recovery, right? But when you get to that point, you got to take care of yourself.
As the kids say it louder for the people in the back,
In
please.
the back. Right, 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 right. You got to take care of
Take
yourself.
care of yourself. So true.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's that's a great segue into how do you prevent burnout? Like what are you doing differently now on a
Yeah.
daily basis to prevent you burning out?
So, oh, I love this because this is going to be so, I'm an academic. And so this is going to be so wonderfully practical that
Yeah.
sometimes I think we make things so difficult.
Yeah.
But Henry Nouwen has this wonderful concept. He says, practice radical hospitality with a concentration on self. That is just practice a radical hospitality with a concentration on self. The biblical narrative that comes to mind, Monique, is when Elijah is done, right? Done. He hides up under a tree.
Yep.
God, take my life. He's whining. He's all of this, yada, yada, yada. He falls asleep, and an angel comes. At this point in the narrative,
Mhm.
any person who's been following the prophet's ministry is waiting for the angel to say, hey, get up, and thus says the Lord, I got your back, right? I'm gonna send you to another mountain. You're gonna kill everybody and their mama, and I'm gonna open the Red Sea. Something, say something to me, God. You know how we get when we get all
Right.
burned out, and we're like, we want to quit. Unless you give me a sign, right? We're gonna quit. Because you gotta have one of the church mothers call me. They gotta pat me on the back. Something got to happen. I gotta have a friend text me in the
Right.
midnight hour. Something. But what's very interesting is that the angel says, wake up. Here's the message: eat, sleep, eat, drink, and sleep. It's like, what?
Profound.
Pro- Profound. Eat, drink, and sleep.
No, wake up.
Right, right. And he does that twice. He does that twice. And then the last time, the angel says, because you still got a long journey ahead of you.
Mm.
And I think that we recover when we practice this radical hospitality with a concentration on self. Because we have the concept of a radical hospitality that is communal, that
Exactly.
first and foremost, we set it up. And the problem with us is that we have this radical hospitality that's communal for everyone else, and they come with their problems, and we make their problems our problems. And we suffer from vicarious trauma. So we come home and we slapping the cat, kicking the dog, getting upset with people. We're angry, we're cussing everybody else out, and we're trying to figure out where do we get all this rage from? And we don't understand that we've been dealing with people all day and we've taken on their issues. But that's not the principle of radical hospitality in a communal sense. The principle of radical hospitality in a communal sense is that you don't take it on, you share. You provide a place for them to share their suffering, but you don't own their suffering. That's number one. Number two is that you then practice a radical hospitality with a concentration on self, which means that at some point, somebody's got to go to the beach for a few days. So you've got to, I mean, this is real talk. I mean, this is practical, and your followers know this is real talk. At some point, you've got to get up as a pastor and a minister, as I have done, and say, no, I'm not preaching today. Pastor, where you going to be at? If you need me, which you don't, and don't call me, but if you need to know where I'm at, I'm going to be on a beach in Puerto Rico for the next 3 or 4 days. And I'm going to be sitting there, and I'm going to eat, drink, and I'm going to sleep. And then I'm going to wake up and repeat. I'm going to do this for 4 days uninterrupted because I want to practice radical hospitality that is concentrated on me. And I think that unless we do that, we'll never be able to recover from burnout.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I feel like I'm done. We can do the benediction, because that's the sermon.
That's it right there. I'll send you my Cash App so you can send me a
Please
check.
do.
And then we'll have a Hammond B3. Make sure you edit something in
That's
there.
true. I need to
There you
add,
go.
yeah. You gotta have the Hammond. You gotta have the Hammond B3. That is, so I have been saying this since it's been almost a year since I've been doing this podcast. I've had tons of guests on here. I've had 95% of the guests look at me like I'm crazy when I said, you gotta take some time off.
Yeah.
You gotta take time off. They're like, how do I do that? You open your mouth and you tell your leaders, your congregation, I'm taking time off.
Yeah. Right. They act like it's, they won't do it. Well, we won't do it, Monique, because we are addicted to being needed.
Yes.
And we are also, our identity is wrapped up in our work.
Yeah.
In our ministry and our service.
So true.
So if I'm not preaching on Sunday,
who am I?
Right.
Nobody's calling me. Oh my goodness.
Right.
Then I'm not preaching good. So I need to preach more.
Right. And nobody knows my name. I'm not being invited.
Yeah.
I take it as a gift. These moments where I'm not bothered, these moments where, no one's calling my name. I take it as a gift.
Yeah.
God giving me a gift and saying, I'm gifting you some time for you to, and sometimes I have to make that time. So I think that it is his church, and the S stands for Savior, not for Superman or Superwoman.
Right.
We are not Superman or Superwoman. He's the Savior. It is his church, and he's got it under control.
Yeah.
So I think that you're absolutely correct. There's a lot of people that look at us like we've got 3 heads and ask, well, how am I going to do that? No, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah. Right. Just do it.
Well, how do I do that?
Right. Yeah. Open up your mouth. Write the letter.
Right. It's like you preach on Sunday, open that same mouth.
Right.
And say, I'm taking off.
Right.
And then hopefully you have leaders, and you can designate who's going to respond to emails and issues or what have you. But yeah, take time off. What is that? Tell the people how it feels when you take time off and you come back. Just maybe they need to hear that.
I don't know. I don't know if they want to hear my answer to that, Moon. I don't. Yeah, as a recovering addict of preaching, I don't know if people want to hear my answer to that because sometimes I just don't feel like coming back. I mean, we were having this conversation yesterday about ministers burning out and leaving to other fields. I have friends who
Yeah.
were pastors for many years and now are in the banking industry,
Yep.
other industries because they burned out.
Yep.
And it is something to be able to take some rest, get healthier, and then come back. There is a sense of wholeness. There is a sense of being a person. There's a person behind this call.
Exactly.
There is this person, and I say that very holistically, a person who enjoys X, Y, and Z, who loves to eat X, Y, and Z, who loves to see X, Y, and Z. And that person never really truly gets to come out. And so when you do have these moments, it does become, if you're true to it, it does become um, almost novel,
Yeah.
romantic, to
Yes.
the point, and I'll say this, and I know that probably a lot of your, followers don't share this who are pastors, but I am looking forward to the day that I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And people often tell me or ask me, what are you going to do? And I really am going to start a restaurant.
Oh,
And I
nice.
really am. I really am. I'm going to be the dude with 2 PhDs cooking in the back. Where's Bishop Alvarez? Oh, that's him right there. He's cooking, cooking in the back. And I mean, it's going to be the best time on planet Earth. I've already
Oh,
experienced that. So it gives me something to look forward to.
you just made my heart smile. You really did because I talked to so many ministry leaders who this, as you mentioned, their identity
Right.
is preaching, pastoring, whatever their title is, that is their identity. It's their title,
Right.
not human being, but that whatever that title is, that's them.
Right.
And they literally, I've seen so many ministry leaders die in the pulpit,
Yeah.
which breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I've said this a few times on this podcast. I am a member of the AME denomination. 98% of our bishops are in their 70s.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Why?
Right.
Why?
Right.
Go sit down, do something else.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
what?
Enjoy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
enjoy
Yeah.
the life that God has given you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Enjoy it. So to hear that you are going to enjoy the rest of your life abundantly,
Right.
do the
Right.
second chapter of your life just makes
Right.
my heart smile.
That's the plan. You
Oh,
pray for me. That's
I
the
I
plan.
am. I
Yeah.
am. I wanna come to the restaurant when you open it.
There you go. We're gonna send you an invitation. Definitely.
That oh, I
Yeah.
feel like you freed some people because I don't hear that raw, honest conversation on here, and
Mhm.
ugh,
Yeah. Yeah. I'll probably get some hate mail. People are like, you're not a real minister.
I'll pay that any attention.
You
I get
know,
all kinds of hate mail, hate messages, I don't care.
right,
I don't have
right,
time.
right. But that's real talk. I mean, it's just
Yeah,
when I've been blessed, Monique. I've been blessed. I mean, I've done things in my very short lived experience in
30
life,
30
and
years of life.
30 years of life. Thank you. All from working as a religious service specialist for the Department of Homeland Security for 5 years,
Wow.
to being an adjunct professor, to having meetings all over the world, to doing this, to doing that. And there's no reason why I cannot set a time for myself. Now, if God, and I believe it's the will of God. Some people go, well, what
Absolutely.
if God says no?
Right.
Um, I mean, I believe it is the will of God for some of us, and I think the reason why we go to 70s, 80s, or 90s is because we don't know how to finish well. It's a real thing. We just don't know how to finish well.
That is the truth that no one wants to say.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't know how to finish well. We haven't done my, professional background was human resources. I've always done succession planning with all of my leaders. There's none of that
mhm,
done, at least for me at
exactly.
the church. Like, there's
Right.
no
Yeah.
succession planning, so we figure we just gotta die before we let someone take over.
Right. 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 Yeah. No. And succession planning is so important to finishing well.
Yeah,
But you have to have the buy-in, and I know a lot of pastors too that you know this. I mean, from your experience,
yep,
they're preaching because they don't know how to sustain themselves. They don't know how to do
yeah,
anything else.
yeah, and then, as I mentioned on here before, contrary to popular belief, pastors and ministry leaders are not out here balling, making a ton of money. I mean, it's
That's the
very,
truth.
very few that make enough money to sustain their household, so they gotta
Right.
keep taking all the preaching engagements, and then they
Yeah.
they gotta take side hustles, and some of them are bivocational. I mean, they
Yep.
they gotta live
They got
as
to live. Yeah.
well, since y'all
Yeah.
aren't paying your tithes and offerings. So, oops. No, I'm just
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I know it. I've been there for 24 years. I know it.
yeah, so
Yeah.
they have to do something, and so I do feel like that's also, as you mentioned, they don't have to sustain themselves, and they have to keep preaching until they die in the ministry. I just
Yeah.
hope that parishioners listen and want to do better. You first get involved in your church,
Right. Right.
you know, support and back your pastor or ministry leader.
Right.
Um, help,
Right. Right.
help tell others about your church so that you can help grow your own congregation.
Right.
Don't put all of the onus on the pastor.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
help them take time off.
Right. Care for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting. In Israel, the practice for the shepherd is that once a year, the shepherd is allowed to shear the sheep.
Mm.
Once
Once
a
a
year,
year.
the shepherd is allowed to shear the sheep totally. So can you imagine, right? If you have, I don't know how many sheep, let's just say 500, you get to shear all 500 sheep
Wow.
once a year. Now, here's the rationale. The rationale is for the sheep, it grows back,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It
That's
grows
true.
back. So, um, but for the shepherd would then take all of the wool, right? All of that sheep's hair, create it into wool, sell it, and make for themselves
Yeah.
some type of financial gain. For what reason? So that they could still be with the sheep,
Yep.
right? So
Oh,
when the sheep needed something,
yep.
the shepherd could be there because the shepherd, by shearing the sheep once a year, was able to get some kind of financial gain that would allow the shepherd to come back and be with the sheep. And I think, our members need to really, really, really understand that.
Yeah.
And so many do not, and it pains my heart that sometimes we give prophets and evangelists and whoever, visiting bishops, and we
Yeah.
go to these conferences and we drop thousands of dollars. Yet at our local churches, if you give $20, it's too much. It is just right, right, right. And so our pastors are struggling, they're burned out. And then you're asking yourself, well, where's the pastor? Well, I mean, he or she is burned out over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, well, let's send them away. Well, let's raise an offering for the pastor. And $500 later, you're looking at it and you're going, where am I gonna go with this? Like, I'm what road trip is going, you know what I mean?
Oh god.
While they're taking family vacations
Right.
for thousands of dollars. Yeah, it's a lot. I'm gonna get
So
off
true.
it before I get in trouble.
It's so true. Oh my gosh.
Because I done
So
been there.
true.
I done been there.
I bet you have. It is so sad. We have these little, so-called pastor appreciation days, and you're right. They get $500, and he should be happy
Yeah,
that he
yeah,
received it.
yeah. And it wasn't, and it used to not be that way. It used to be, and you know this, that it used to be that particularly in the African American and Latino tradition,
Mhm.
it used to be that the pastor represented the best of us, and we
Yes.
wanted he or she to live in a good house, to be
Right.
able to take care of themselves, to be
Right.
able to have health insurance,
Yeah.
because they represented for us in the
Right.
community who we were, the best of us. And,
Yeah.
I remember reading stories in the African American tradition and the Latino tradition where people would see the pastor and whatever he or she was driving or living or health insurance, and they felt pride because that's
Yeah.
my pastor. They
Yeah.
represent me. And I go to that church.
Right.
And yet, with modernity and post-modernity upon us and the challenges, that has changed. And now, it's like we got to fend for ourselves,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Oh, that is so true. And you're right. That used to be the case. And I don't we could that's probably a whole nother podcast episode of how we got here.
Right, right, right.
But I'm hearing from a lot of young folks. I just turned 50 last year. Oh God, I'll be 51. Lord have mercy.
No, ma'am.
Give me a
No,
minute.
ma'am.
Give me a minute.
No, ma'am.
I need to sit with that one.
No, don't look a day. No, 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 you don't.
Thank
Look,
you. Oh
oh,
gosh,
please.
I'll be 51 April 5th. So, oh gosh, that just hit me. But but a lot of the younger folks, um, they really resent. There's like all these memes on social media about pastors and ministry leaders having nice cars and their congregation not, and they blame the pastor
Mhm.
for everything, right?
Right.
How dare you? And I remember years ago, I think it was CNN on one of those news channels. They did this expose on I think it was TD Jakes,
I remember seeing that.
Olstein. Yeah, and they
Yeah,
were talking about
Creflo.
their
Yeah,
lavish lifestyles. And I'm thinking all of those people have other streams of income. So not saying they're not being paid well at their church. I'm sure they are. They've grown their congregations, which they don't bring
right,
out, right?
right,
TD Jake started in a storefront
right, right,
and
right,
has grown to thousands and thousands of members,
right.
but they don't bring that out. And he's written tons of books, movie, has a production studio. I mean, he has
What doesn't TJ have?
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah, what
Greeting
doesn't he
cards
have?
at one
He has
time,
his
like
own channel now.
right.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
for sure.
mean, they have other streams of income, but
Right.
the dialogue on social media, they don't talk about that. They just talk about the church and the cars that they drive. Heaven
Mhm.
forbid if they wear Gucci and Louis Vuitton on social media. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
How dare
it
they?
breaks. The social media breaks that day. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So my listeners, please know that the majority of ministry leaders are not balling like that, and they do need money just like you need money for your household and bills.
Right.
The
Yeah.
church needs money because you go in and soak up the AC and the heat,
Yeah.
and you use the running water and
Yep.
all of that good stuff. Internet now, Zoom, all of
Yeah.
these. Zoom is
All of
not
that.
free.
Right.
Like all of this stuff costs money. So I'm not
Right.
sure where we think our poor pastors are supposed to get that from. And why do we think our pastors are supposed to do everything?
Right.
It
Yeah,
baffles
you
me.
got to be the media engineer
Yeah.
now because
Yeah.
everything is that now LED backdrop, and so you've
Yep.
got to learn how to put that up. It's yeah,
It's crazy. It's
it's crazy.
crazy.
Yeah,
It's here, which is why this podcast exists because our
yeah, yeah.
pastors need to talk about these things. we I honestly have nothing else to ask you because I really feel like you have freed some people. I really, really do. Just even talking about taking the time off,
Yeah.
how important it is to give back to yourself.
Oh,
I really feel like that's really where I want to leave this because I have the hardest time getting pastors to accept that they need time off.
yeah.
So thank you. Thank you.
Oh, bless you. Bless you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Yeah.
So again, I have nothing else to say. I really just want pastors to get that, to accept that, and to try. I challenge every pastor listening
Hmm.
to take some time off. If it's not 3 days, try one day, one full day,
Right.
unplug and
Yeah.
off, commune with God. There are a lot of pastors who read their Bible for work and not for pleasure.
Right. Right. Right.
So try that. Just take some time off. So I challenge you to do that. I'm just I'm full. I need to just I need to go and just meditate on everything you just said. I'm gonna enjoy editing this video so I can rehear it because
Oh, bless
so
you.
good. So, so
Well,
good. So let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
sure. So I Emilio Alvarez, I guess, on Facebook. I think it's BP Emilio on Instagram. I think it's like BP Emilio on Twitter. I
Okay.
don't know. I
Okay.
really don't care too much
But you
about.
have a website, right? I think I saw a
I
website.
do, I do.
Okay.
I have so there's Emilio Alvarez Jr. I think it's .com or .org.
Okay.
So
I'll find it.
Emilio Alvarez Jr.com.org. You can find us at the UCOC.org as well. I think it is. Yep, the Union of Charismatic Orthodox Churches. Or if they're looking for me at Asbury, they can just go to the Asbury Theological Seminary website, and I can be found on there as well.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, again, I can't wait to edit this because I just want to hear it all over again. So good. I just thank you so much for taking time out to be a guest. I will put all of your information in the description so everyone can reach out to you. But you are a treasure.
Oh, thank you, Monique. Thank you so very
You are.
much.
I have to protect you at all costs. So you let me know if there's anything I can do for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Please let me
Yes, ma'am.
know.
Yes, ma'am. Will do. Thank you so much for just opening this wonderful space and opportunity, and to your followers. Just thank you for your time and your patience. I really did enjoy myself, and it was a pleasure meeting you, and I hope it won't be the last.
It won't, especially with you creating a restaurant soon. So,
Yes, ma'am. Okay. All right. And I can throw down too.
okay now. So what's going to be your specialty in your restaurant?
So it's gonna. I have a name for it. It's gonna be called Natives, and
Okay.
the specialty is to take literally 4 or 5 Caribbean or Latino dishes that are influenced by African heritage.
Oh, I love.
Yeah. So Cuban, Argentinian, there's, 4 or 5 different Spanish countries, Latino countries whose dishes have African influence.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be my yeah, that's the
Oh,
restaurant.
that's right up my alley. I like for real need to visit.
Yeah.
My father was from Honduras. And
Oh,
so yeah,
okay.
yeah. My father was from
Oh,
Honduras, and I have some relatives in Jamaica. So that is like
yeah,
right up my
yeah.
alley.
Right
Yeah.
up your alley. That's
Perfect.
great. All right.
Perfect.
Well, at least I
Perfect.
know I have one customer.
Well, at
Yeah.
least one.
Right.
Exactly.
At least one. Yeah.
No, that sounds like you're probably gonna be on the food channel. Was it the food channel? I think that's what
What
it's
is it, the
called.
Food Network?
Food Network. Yeah,
There
that
it is.
sounds like
There it is.
something I'm just gonna speak it. I'm just gonna
There
speak
you
that.
go.
Yeah.
Girl,
I just
from your lips to God's ears. I
absolutely.
prophesy. Do something. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. As soon as I get word on the restaurant, everyone, I will let you know. when it opens. But thank you again, Bishop, for all that you've done and all that you are going to do. I really, really appreciate you. And that is all, everyone. I will see you next time. Bye.